Thank you, Ibe.
Yeah, Joe and Kwame, welcome. As we wait for other participants to also join us for today's webinar. Michelle, Joe, Kwame, Fred, welcome all of you. We also waiting for other participants to join us for today's webinar on hand sanitizer, on the standard that we get to know more about the standard that we are operating with in the production of alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We still have a few people who have joined. So I see Frederick, Joseph, Kwame, Raymond Boateng. Welcome, Michelle, Larona. We thank all of you for joining us for today's webinar with Ghana Standards Authority, taking us through the standard for producing alcohol-based hand sanitizers. It will be a very detailed presentation by resource person Francisca Frimpong from the Standards Units of Ghana Standards Authority. We hope you would all find the presentation and the time spent with us valuable so that we can improve our production processes and make sure our products meet the required standards. You're welcome. This program is organized by WACOMP in collaboration or in partnership with the Ghana Standards Authority. WACOMP is the West African Competitiveness Program funded by the EU and implemented across all West African countries. In Ghana, it's implemented by UNIDO and working on 3 main value chains. We're working on cassava and its derivatives. We're working on cosmetics and personal care products. We're working on fruits, mainly mangoes and pineapples. We thank all of you for joining us. The main objective of WACOMP is to improve or contribute to improving the competitiveness of the Ghanaian economy through the production of these 3 value chains that we've talked of. And today, as I have said, our main issue would be on cosmetics. So far we have 10 participants. We have well over 50. So I would indulge you briefly as others connect so we can move on. And for those of you also joining us, it's a privilege. We're happy to have you with us. And also to remind you that hopefully on Friday, we'll have another webinar on the market access for natural cosmetics from Ghana. It will be such an interesting study with such presentation, and we'll be looking forward that you join us and also contribute and learn from this and then take advantage of market opportunities that exist within the natural cosmetics window. I have 11 attendees. We don't want to miss so much. We don't want the other attendees to miss. So let's give ourselves another minute and then we will launch and then the others can join. We have well over 50 participants, so we are still well below. So just indulge with us. We crave your indulgence. Just give us a minute, max 2, and then we can launch. I see Rita, welcome. I see Linda, I see Michelle, Sylvester, our good old friend, Raymond, Larona, Kwame, Joseph, Frederick, the experts from WACOMP. We thank all of you for joining and for making time to be with us today. As I said earlier on, today it's all about hand sanitizers. And at this era of COVID, I mean, one of the key household item, like somebody said, these days it's every household has a alcohol-based hand sanitizer. So it's air, water, and then hand sanitizer. You need these things to survive this era. We've got so many producers producing hand sanitizers, and WACOMP, in collaboration with our sister project, the GQSP, contributed, supported FDA to develop the standard that we'll be talking about today. So without much ado now, we'll have a very short poll. The poll is just to help us understand the categories of producers who are joining us, or categories of attendees or manufacturers who are joining us, to understand where we're coming from. It gives our resource person, Francisca, the room, and then how she would also go about her presentation. So on your screens now, the poll is up. These are three very simple questions. So we encourage those of us who are here to answer as far as we can. And then when the results are announced, we would start the actual presentation. Thank you all, and we're waiting for your responses. Thank you. So the first part is, are you already producing hand sanitizer? It's a yes or no question. Very brief. Are you familiar with the hand sanitizer standard? It's a yes or no question. Is your product registered at FDA? Very straight questions. And then from there, Francisca would help us with a detailed presentation after the results of the polls are announced. So we have 9 out of good. We're still waiting. We encourage everybody here to answer for us so we can kickstart. Good. We have 2 more, and then we should go complete the process. The result is coming up pretty. Yes. Good. So let's watch the space. Are you already producing hand sanitizer? We have yes, 42%. Are you familiar with the standard? So Francisca, your work is cut out. There's a little over how 58% say they are familiar with the hand sanitizer standard, but 42 are not. So it's also good that, and more products have not been registered. So maybe you'd also tell us what to do to get our products registered at FDA, and also what we have to get it certified at GSA. On this note, I welcome all of you to today's webinar. Our main resource person is Francisca Frimpong from the Standards Unit. She's also a producer herself, so she's not only going to talk theory, but she'll be giving us details, practical experience into what to do to make sure that our alcohol-based hand sanitizer produced meets the requirements. On this note, I hand you over to Francisca. Francisca, we are all ready for you, waiting to learn from you. Thank you very much, Francisca, and have a nice time as you tell us the details. Okay.
Thank you very much for having me. I welcome all of you to today's presentation, which is basically going to be discussions on the hand sanitizer standard that was developed early part of this year as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was really, there was a need to have this particular standard when COVID-19 reared its head, and hence complying with it is very, very necessary. Okay, so my name is Francisca Frimpong. I'm with the Food, Chemistry and Material Standards Department of Ghana Standards Authority. And this morning, basically, as I said, we would be looking at the hand sanitizer standard. The outline of the presentation will be in this form. First of all, give you a brief description of how standards are developed, and then take you through good manufacturing practices. And then we will go through the standard itself, the GS 1303-2020. And then we'll talk a little bit about certification processes at Ghana Standards Authority. Someone would say, we're saying standards. What is standards, or what are standards? Standard is a document that provides requirements, specifications, guidelines, or characteristics that can be used consistently to ensure that materials and products are fit for purpose. In simple terms, a standard is an agreed way of doing something. Okay, and there are several types of standards. Now we have a standard which is purely on specifications. Now this particular standard will just list the types of requirements that you need to meet. And then there are standards which are purely test methods, giving you the directions and then how to go about testing of your products, the test methods. Then we have the system standards, which talks about what to do during your processes to ensure that your end products or your services that you are rendering are complying with standards. Then we talk about the guidelines and recommendations. Now the Ghana standard GS 1303 is basically both specification and test method. So once you get hold of the standard, you realize that it lists the specifications that you are required to meet, as well as test methods that you use in ensuring that your product complies with the specifications that has been set. So before a standard comes out, there are 6 main stages it goes through before it comes out. Now these stages are, it starts with the proposal stage. And with the proposal stage, we have people, individuals who have their request for standards writing directly to Ghana Standards Authority, and with justifications as to why they need this particular standard. We look at these proposals and then consider them. The proposal can be a new work item, or it can be an old document which changes needs to be made to, because we know standards are not static, and then products are dynamic. Production of products are dynamic. It changes with time. So as and when it changes, we need to also review or revise our documents in line with that. Now, once the proposal has been brought, we allocate it to a technical committee, and the technical committee has a technical secretary who will take up the proposal and then look at it and then prepare a working draft in line with that. Now, before our first point of contact in the preparation of a working draft is to look at international standards. Okay, so we look at ISO standards, we look at EN standards, we look at ASTM standards. These are American standards. We have the International Standardization Organization for Standardization standards. Then we have the European standards. So we look at all these standards, and if they are fit for use here, we adopt them. If they are not, sometimes we need to adjust it a little bit based on conditions here, and then we adapt it to suit ourselves. Sometimes there may not be any international standards. Then we come down to our regional standards. Ghana Standards Authority, we are members of ASO, African Regional Standards Organization, as well as ECOSHAM within the West African region. So we also work with them on their standards. And if these standards are okay, we also adopt them. If there are no standards in that regard, published standards, then we have to come up with our own standards. And that becomes our national standards. And based on that, we get data and research from research institutions, as well as our conformity assessment bodies. And then we prepare working drafts for the committee to look at. From the preparatory stage, we move on to the committee stage, where we have the technical committee coming together to have discussions on the draft document. And then based on discussions that has been held there, we come out with the draft standard for public review. Now we know that with our technical committees, we have limited number of people who can be on the technical committee. And we also know that there are the stakeholders are very many. So we want to bring all stakeholders on board when we are developing our standards. So once the committee, which is a limited number of people, have looked at it, we then circulate it to the wider population of stakeholders to also have a look at it and have a say in the document. Comments from the wider stakeholder groups, our stakeholder population is brought in, we compile it, and then the committee looks at it again. Now, based on the committee's discussions, relevant comments with proper justifications are incorporated into the standards, and then it's approved for publication and gazetting. And that is when we say we have a Ghana standard available for use. So in our discussions, this is how a typical technical committee discussions will probably look at. Like, we have, we sit down and hold discussions, and for our technical committees, we bring on board experts. So depending on the area of, or subject area, we get experts within that subject area to be part of this technical committee. So we get people from the academia and research, government agencies, because sometimes we need policies to be made. And these policies, we need people on board the technical committees who will take decisions made at the committee to the government level for policies to be made. We bring on board industry and trade associations because we know that they are the people who do the productions. Their expertise is needed. They need to come and talk to us about the issues they have in productions, and then bring their expertise to bear on the development of the standard as well. Our consumers are very, very important. At the end of the day, the whole essence of trying to comply with standards is for our consumers to have quality products out there. So we need our consumers on board and say in the documents. Then our conformity assessment bodies, inspections, testing, and certification. Now, at the end of your production, your final product needs to be tested to ensure that it complies with the set limits in the standard. And to do that, you need the conformity assessment bodies to help out in that regard. So we bring them on board as well. Regulatory bodies are very relevant when it comes to standards development, because at the end of the day, they actually implement the requirements that have been set in the document. So we bring them on board as well. And then any other relevant people we deem fit based on the subject area, we also we bring them on board. And then finally, we have a rep from Ghana Standards Authority, the Standards Directorate, to be on board. Looking at the leadership of the technical committee, we usually would want a neutral person to be the chair. And when we are looking at the leadership, we usually look at the academia and the research, because then they are very neutral people, so they can chair the meeting. We also usually use a secretary. We take a secretary from the Standards Directorate of the Ghana Standards Authority to give directions to the committee and then give advice on the proceedings of the committee. One would say, what are the benefits at all I would derive from working with standards, okay, or for complying with standards? One benefit is that you save cost, okay, because when you are working with standards or trying to comply with standards, it tells you the final product, the quality of the final product. And as I will take you through good manufacturing practices, you need to list your raw materials. You need to know the amount you are taking in order to get the right concentration for the final product. Now, once these are written down, you do not waste your raw materials. You go according to the proceedings and then the amount you have written. And hence you optimize your operations and then save costs. So one way of one benefit of complying with standards is that you save costs. One also way of benefits of complying with standards is to enhance your customer satisfaction. How do you do that? Now, once you have a quality product out there, you would get your customers liking it, and hence you get more people buying the product. And at the end of the day, it will increase your shares. Okay, at the end of the day, you get more sales because the customers are buying more of your products. You also have access to the global markets because, as I said, we are part of ASO and we are part of ECOSHAM. Now, the whole idea is to harmonize our standards in such a way that if I'm producing here in Ghana, I will be able to sell my products out there in Kenya, in Cote d'Ivoire. Okay, so once you are complying with standards, you have that easy access to markets. There are no technical barriers to your trade because then our standards are harmonized. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to sell not only in Ghana, but outside Ghana as well. And then because you are complying with standards, you know how to treat your waste. You know in the selection of your packaging materials, how to look out for. You would want to pick a packaging material that is biodegradable, easily degradable in the environment, that is reusable, because then it will have environmental effects if you have to leave a lot of waste in the environment. And all these are parts of the benefits you derive from complying with standards. We move on to good manufacturing practices. Good manufacturing practices are basically things you put in place in your manufacturing setup in order that your finished products comply with the set standards. And what are some of the things you need to do? First of all, personnel. In your selection of personnel, it's best that you assign roles to the personnel. Okay. Your personnel are supposed to know exactly what they are going to do within your setup. You assign the roles to them and you train them. It should be a continual training process, not just one of I employ you, I train you. No, there should be a program set up that maybe once a year. I need to take my employers through good manufacturing practices. You can decide to do that at your outfits there, have a simple training for them there. Or you can also contact us. We have an industrial services department here that can take care, develop tailor-made trainings for you depending on what you require, okay? And so you need to continuously train your employees, and then if they are new employees, you need to train them as well. Personnel hygiene is very, very necessary. You need to establish a hygiene program, okay? Before your personnel enter the manufacturing sector or section, what are they supposed to do? Is it that when I come to work, I just open the door and enter? There must be a program in place. Maybe before you enter the manufacturing site, I need to take off my shoes and wear manufacturing boots there. I need to wash my hands. I need to cover my head. I need to don on the appropriate PPEs. This is a program that should be in place, or an SOP, a procedure that should be in place. And your personnel should be very much aware of what they are supposed to do before they enter into the manufacturing site. There shouldn't be also no eating. You shouldn't be eating at the manufacturing site.
Yeah, I think for listeners, we having a few challenges with the sound from, I think it's network issue. So we'll get in touch with Francisca to let her repost it. Thank you.
All the chemical might contaminate for the personnel. If you look, this is just an example of how before you enter a manufacturing process, you do not have hair falling into, you do not...
Francesca, we lost you a bit when you started training. So if you could please repeat that slide, take that slide back for us, please. Hello, Francesca.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you, and I believe the participants can hear you. But we lost you a bit when you started talking about assigning responsibilities, how to enter. It went very faint. We couldn't hear you. So if you can repeat from that side again for us, please.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry, unfortunately this morning I'm having a little bit of challenges with the internet, but hopefully we'll pull through. So going back to the personnel and how important it is when it comes to personnel. So in your good manufacturing practices, in employing of your personnel, once you employ them, you need to assign roles and responsibilities to them. Let them be aware of exactly why they have been employed. Let them know there are responsibilities. And at the end of the day, you need to train them to build up their skills. You need to have continuous training. It's not just a one-off training. There should be a continuous training program. Example is you can have training maybe once a year on good manufacturing practices. You can also have training once a year on the procedures of your productions, okay? And we have an industrial services department here at Ghana Standards Authority that can take care of your needs if you don't have the expertise to do that training. So you can kindly contact us if you want us to have that training for you. Moving on, speaking on the personnel hygiene, you should have a hygiene program. You should have a hygiene. You should have a hygiene program. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You froze a bit, but I think you can go ahead. It's okay.
Okay. So you should have a hygiene program established, okay? And one of the hygiene programs is your employers should know what they do once they get to the manufacturing site. Do they just enter the manufacturing place with their clothing? Where do they put their bags? Are they supposed to work with the dresses they bring from the house? Can they eat at the manufacturing site or the factory? You need to put all of these in place, okay? So that one can be established in the manufacturing program that has been set by you or established by you. You also need to provide the appropriate PPEs for your manufacturers. And in doing that, this is a typical example of someone who is going to manufacture, maybe in the manufacturing site, okay? So you wear your head cap, cover your hair nicely because you wouldn't want hair falling into your products. You wear your apron, you wear your gloves, and then you cover your mouth, and then wear your goggles because you wouldn't want the chemicals splashing into your eyes. It's quite painful if you get alcohol splashed into your eyes, actually. And then you wear your nose mask to protect yourself from the chemicals, and then sometimes so that you yourself do not contaminate the products that you are working on. It's also very much appropriate to wear a non-slip shoes. Why? Because you are working with liquid. Some may fall on the floor, and you need to have a non-slippery shoe so that you do not have injuries being recorded so much at your workplaces. Aside that, visitors are supposed to also be taken through giving information on personal hygiene, and then they should wear appropriate PPEs before they are allowed to enter into your manufacturing setup. And there shouldn't be any eating, drinking of water there, because then you can either contaminate the products or the chemicals being used there can contaminate your food, and it would cause a lot of health issues for you. The second area to also look at is your premises, okay? You don't need a really sophisticated premises to start production. A single room would be much appropriate if you are a small scale entrepreneur. So, but however, that single room that you have, you need to design it in such a way that you allocate a section for each processing, for each process within your manufacturing, okay. So you start off with your raw materials. You allocate a place where you locate your raw materials, and you clearly label that place for raw materials. And it's also most appropriate to also label your raw materials that you are using, so that anyone, if you are not there and someone would have to take up your place, the person knows exactly what raw materials are available, and then whatever he's adding on as well. You also need to allocate a place for your finished products. So once you are done with your manufacturing, where do I keep my finished products? Allocate a place within that same single room for your finished product. And then you have your main manufacturing side where you do all your mixing, where you do first of all your weighing, where you do your mixing, and where you do your packaging and labeling. Okay, so that one would ensure that you protect your products, and it will also help with the efficient cleaning and sanitizing, as well as maintaining of your equipment, because then you know that this is why I keep my raw material, this is where I keep my measuring equipment. I need to maintain it. I need to sanitize the bench tops before I start work. And so as not to have a mix-up of your products with your raw materials and packaging materials. Everything should be orderly when it comes to your premises. You should also have a washing and toilet facilities for your employees, and it should be easily accessible. You should also have adequate lighting. You wouldn't want a factory whereby you do not have so much lighting. You do not have enough lighting for your workers to work with. That can have an effect on their eyes, and you wouldn't want that. There should be enough ventilation. You are working with chemicals. You wouldn't want an enclosed place which is not, where there is no sufficient ventilation. And to do that, you need to ensure that you have enough opening to allow in enough work. If you have pipes, drains, and ducts, you should ensure that they are installed in such a way that they do not cause any contamination to your process or your final products. And then you need to ensure that your premises are maintained and clean so that they do not have an effect on your final product. Equipment. When it comes to manufacturing, we have a couple of equipment that we usually use. And when it comes to hand sanitizer, these are some basic equipment that are needed for production. You have the measuring scale, depending on what you are using or what type of hand sanitizer you are preparing. If you are preparing the gel type, you would need a measuring scale to measure your gelling agent, which is maybe Carboma or CMC, whichever gelling agent you choose to use. You need a measuring scale. If you are the gelling type, you also need a pH meter. Even if it's not the gelling type, even if it's not the gelling type, you would need a pH meter because it's one of the requirements in the standard that you check the pH, and the pH should be within a certain range. We will look at that once we get to the requirements. So it's either you're using the pH meter or you are using the pH paper. Now you would need a hydrometer as well, because in buying your raw materials, one of the major raw materials to be used in the hand sanitizer standard is alcohol. Now, what is the percentage of alcohol I am buying? If you are not really buying from a credible source, or if even you are buying it from a credible source, you would need to test the initial concentration of the sanitizer in order to determine what or how much to take to get the final concentration that you need. And hence a hydrometer would help you in determining that. You need to take some measurements. What volume of water am I supposed to add to my product? What volume of the alcohol am I supposed to add to it? And all these are measuring instruments you would need in your work. Now, with all these measuring instruments, how do I know the accuracy of these measuring instruments? To know the accuracy of these measuring instruments, we need to calibrate these instruments to ensure that they are delivering the right measurement to me. The Ghana Standards Authority is mandated by law to be calibrating and ensuring that measuring instruments are accurate in our production sites. And hence, if you have any of these measuring instruments, I would entreat you to bring it to Ghana Standards Authority so that we calibrate it for you. These equipments are supposed to also be cleaned and sanitized, okay? And you need to maintain it, ensure that you continuously maintain it during your production. And these are not the only things you need. Some of us might not even have these equipment, but then we have our normal bowls, and then we have our normal stirrers. Okay, you need to ensure that all these are clean, these are sanitized before you start your production, and you need to maintain it. Some of us might be using what we usually term as the bankuta in mixing most of our sanitizers. Okay, you do not use the bankuta for mixing your sanitizer, then you finish and go and use it for your banku. No, it is a no. That is not part. When it comes to good manufacturing practices, it's not a good thing to do. So you ensure that all the measuring equipment and then the measuring scales, as well as your mixing bowls and stirrers, are used solely for what you have bought it for, which is the mixing of the sanitizer. Do not mix it with other things that you are doing. And then I'll touch on sourcing of raw materials. Sourcing of raw materials is very, very important because your final product, the quality of your final product is based on your raw materials that you have bought or you are going to use. If you do not buy your raw materials from very credible sources, you might have unadulterated starting materials. And at the end of the day, the quality of your product would not meet the minimum requirement that has been set in the standard. So these are just examples of some of the materials you would need when you are producing hand sanitizers. The first of all is the alcohol. Now the standard states clearly that there are only 3 types of alcohol that is allowed in the production of hand sanitizer. The first one is isopropyl alcohol. The second is ethanol, and the third is N-propanol. On our markets, I see more of the isopropyl alcohol, what we usually term as the IPA, and then I see more of the ethanol. The N-propanol usage is not that much on our markets. For those who also produce the thick or the gel type of hand sanitizers, we have thickening agents that we usually use. Depending on what you are producing, you can decide on which type of thickening agent you would be using. Some people use what you usually call the carboma, others use the CMC, and others also use aloe vera gel. So it's all your preference. You don't have to stick with one formulation. Depending on what you want to use, you go ahead and use it. The production of hand sanitizer, you need water. And in your sourcing of water, you need to ensure that you have the right source of water or the right quality of water to use. You can check the quality of water. You can bring the quality of water to Ghana Standards Authority for us to check for you to see if it meets the requirements that can be used in the production of water of your sanitizer. Or you can use distilled water, sterile distilled water in your production. You can also boil normal tap water, cool it, and then use it. But you need to ensure that there are no particles in the water so that it does not affect the quality of the final product that you chain out. Water has the ability of introducing bacterial spores or fungi spores onto in your product, and hence it's very necessary that you ensure that the quality of water you are using, it's very good. WHO has recommended that you put in hydrogen peroxide, and that is to eliminate any contaminating spores in your product. They recommend about 0.1 to 3% of your total production. You put in about 0.1 to 3% of hydrogen peroxide, so that in case you might not see these spores bacterial spores. So in case you have these bacterial spores in there, then it takes care of eliminating it. Alcohol has a tendency of drying up our hands once we use it more often, and hence you need a humectant to help with moisturization of our hands. Now that we are using sanitizers quite often, and hence glycerin is recommended. So if you want to add a moisturizer or a humectant, glycerin is one of the recommended humectants to be used in the preparations. You may also add color or fragrance. It depends on you. It's your preference. Whatever you want, you should ensure that these colors and fragrances are permitted to be used, okay? So you just need to ensure that you are really getting all these raw materials from credible sources, and then ensure that you test your raw materials. The use of the hydrometer is to ensure that your alcohol content, your initial raw material, which is alcohol content, is at the right percentage for you to do your normal calculations and use it in the production. And you need to store your raw materials very well. Some of us, we buy our raw materials in bulk. You need to ensure that you are storing it very well so that it doesn't get contaminated. You need to label all your raw materials. As I said earlier, label them and give an allocation, allocate a place where you keep your raw materials so that in case you are not there and someone is doing that production on your behalf, the person would know and be able to identify where to get the raw materials and then which type of raw materials he or she is picking and using. And it's also recommended that you take receipts when you buy your raw materials, because then in case there are any issues with the raw material, you can go back to the seller, and then with your receipt, you know that you bought it from there. Then we come to the production of hand sanitizers. When it comes to good manufacturing processes, as I said, you need to, the floor of your manufacturing site should be designed in such a way that each process takes place at an allocated place, okay? So you have your raw materials being put at a corner, then you have your production itself, where you do your mixing, where you do your packaging, and then where you do your measurements. You should have all these put in place, and all these suitable equipment, which was listed previously and in previous slides, come to bear here. When it comes to formulation of hand sanitizer, there is no one way of formulating hand sanitizer. There are several ways of formulating hand sanitizer. It depends on you, the person doing it. If you decide to go with the alcohol, the liquid type, then you wouldn't have any issue. You would have to start with know the concentration of your initial alcohol, and then based on that, you do your calculations and your mixing to get your final alcohol. Mind you, as you do your calculations, you need to consider every little bit of raw materials you add to it. So if you decide that you're going to add fragrance, there's a volume of fragrance you have to add to it. You need to consider that in your calculations. If you have to add color, or you want to add color, you need to consider that in your calculations. If you want to add a humectant, whichever humectant you decide to use, whether glycerin, you include that in your calculations, because if you do not include that in your calculations and you start your calculations with just the alcohol and the water, and then you top up with this, your alcohol concentration will not be the same. In your starting formulation, you need to ensure that you list all the raw materials that you want to start with, and then allocate the amount based on your calculations on the product before you even start. And that will help in knowing the exact amount of raw materials you are picking, and it will help you optimize your operations. As I said, that is one of the best benefits of complying with standards. And these details should be put down, okay? You should detail these ones in a document so that if you are not there, and then someone would have to, an employee would have to go through with the production, the person knows that at this stage I'm supposed to do this, at this stage I'm supposed to do it. It's documented there, and then it's very easy. If you need to take in-process control, you need to take some, have some control checks. You need to make sure that you document that as well, and you need to ensure that your employees are made aware of it. What temperatures am I supposed to do these productions? At what point am I supposed to take the pH of my products? Okay. What if I'm using an automated match? What speed am I supposed to mix up my product? Okay. If you are using the manual one, am I supposed to mix my product slowly, or I can just pour the entire alcohol into my gel and then mix it up? Am I going to get my products that would it come out well? How am I supposed to do my sanitizing of my equipment? Do I do it before or do I do it after? All these would need to be written down and documented. And for each production, okay, you need to assign a batch number. And then you need to know the quantities you are producing. All these should be put down because these are some of the things when inspectors come to your manufacturing site, they look out for. They look out for your procedures. They look out for how you source your raw materials. They look out for your quantities you have produced in a batch. And then the batch identification numbers, they compare that with the batches that you have produced so far. These are very, very relevant information that needs to be documented. And then finally, after your production, you have your finished product. You need to store these finished products in a defined area under appropriate conditions. So depending on whichever product you are producing, we are talking about sanitizer now. So you need to ensure that you store the sanitizers under appropriate conditions. And then at the end of the day, your finished product, once you ensure that you go through good manufacturing practices, your product should meet the predefined criteria, which is the Ghana standard GS 1303, which we will be looking at in the next slide. So we are now on the standard itself, which is GS 1303 2020, which is on antiseptics, specification for alcohol-based hand sanitizers. We see on our markets that we have several types of hand sanitizers. Some are alcohol-based, some are not alcohol-based. This particular standard covers only alcohol-based hand sanitizer. So the ones which are non-alcohol-based, we have a different standard which we need to use for that. So today we are only looking at the alcohol-based hand sanitizer documents. Normative references. In coming out of this standard, we made references to some international standards, one of which we just finished looking at, which is the GS ISO 22716. I would recommend that all manufacturers within the cosmetics industry purchase that particular standard. It gives you a step-by-step process as to how to ensure that your manufacturing processes according to the standard. It gives you detailed information. I just brushed on it. So you need to purchase that particular standard and ensure that you are complying with the requirements in there. Then we also made references to some Ghana standards as well. What are the general requirements within the standard? Now, first and foremost, the first requirement is that the hand sanitizer shall be manufactured in accordance with GS ISO 22716, which is the good manufacturing practices within the cosmetics industry. We have already spoken about that. I have taken you through some major areas that you should know when it comes to good manufacturing practices. But there are more information within the document, and I would recommend it to all manufacturers to get this particular document. Then the second one is also that it shall not include substances that are not permitted or restricted in cosmetic products. And that particular standard is GS 227 Part 2 and GS 227 Part 3. This is also a standard which is very much recommended for use by cosmetic producers. It's not just for hand sanitizer. You might be into several productions, okay? You need to ensure that you know the chemicals you are adding, whether it's permitted or whether it's restricted. You need to have a look at this. So you get your list and then you ensure that you compare with the standard to help you know whether it is permitted or restricted. It is not permitted or restricted. The standard also says that you may have moisturizers, fragrances, and then coloring matter added to it. It's not restrictive. You can decide not to add moisturizers or fragrances or coloring matter. It all depends on your preference. You should just ensure that these fragrances and then the coloring matter as well as moisturizers are permitted to be used in the cosmetic industry. In your productions, if you actually produce according to good manufacturing practices, you shouldn't have an issue with the next requirement, which says that it shall be free from physical impurities. Okay, if you ensure that the water you are using is free from physical impurities, if you ensure that your raw materials, you source it from credible sources and that there are no impurities in there. Once you ensure that your employees don on the appropriate PPEs, you shouldn't have an issue with physical impurities in the document. Physical impurities, we term this as any visible particles in your sanitizer, which is not part of the original formulations. In coming out to the standard, we didn't want to stifle innovation. There are people who put in shimmers and beads to sanitizers to beautify it. That forms part of the formulation. Those are part of the formulations to improve upon the aesthetic view or look of the sanitizer. That one are not physical impurities. Now, if the impurity is not supposed to be part of the formulation, then we term that as a physical impurity. Example is hair. Once you see a human hair in there, it's not part of the formulation, and hence you term that as a physical impurity. We also should ensure that the chemicals that are used in there does not cause any harmful effect to the skin. And that is why the 227 Part 2 and then 227 Part 3 are very necessary. You need to list all your chemicals and ensure that they comply with these two standards. Then during the development of the standard, it came to light that we had shortages of alcohol on our market, and hence people started using mentholated spirits in the production of alcohol. We all know that mentholated spirit contains methanol. So the standard says that methanol shall be absent, okay? In your production, you need to ensure that you are using the 3 types of recommended alcohol in the document, which is the isopropyl alcohol, ethanol, and then N-propanol. Mentholated spirit, which contains methanol, is not
Hello, Francisca. Again, to our participants, it looks like we're having a little bit of challenges with the internet at Francisca's location. Please bear with us. We hope she should reconnect soon, and then we continue. Hello, Francisca. Hello. Franca. Hello, Francisca.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we lost you. Yes, so maybe you have to take this slide again.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I'm saying that we lost you when you were on this table.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay, so Francisca, can we do it? Francisca, we can't hear you.
Okay, so yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, Charles. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. It looks like your bandwidth is low. Can we maybe turn off your camera then we can make maximum use of the voice?
Okay, that should be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So please go ahead. So we lost you on this table. If you can take it over again.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So when it comes to the chemical requirements of the hand sanitizer, these are the chemical requirements of your finished products. You remember I spoke on the sourcing of raw materials and ensuring that you get the appropriate raw materials from very credible sources. Now, if you do not get your raw materials from credible sources, you are going to start off first of all with the raw materials with low concentration of the alcohol, and hence your final product might not be able to meet these minimum requirements that has been set in the standard. So for the chemical requirements, when you are using ethanol, purely ethanol in your production, the standard says that you should have a minimum of 60% volume by volume of alcohol in your product. If you are using a mixture of your alcohols, a combination, some people, due to how strong the IPA is, the isopropyl alcohol is, they would want to mix it up a little bit with ethanol to bring the aroma of the strong scent down a little bit. And hence, if you are doing that combination of alcohol, you need to ensure that your final product has a minimum of 70% volume by volume of alcohol content in there. And if you are using purely the isopropyl alcohol as well as the N-propanol, you should ensure that you have a minimum limit of 70% volume by volume in your product. pH is very relevant when it comes to hand sanitizer production, because you wouldn't want the pH of your product to go beyond a certain range, since you'll be using more of the hand sanitizers on your hands. You need to ensure that it's really good for the skin, and hence this pH range was picked, 4 to 7. It also, in using your gelling agent, depending on the type of gelling agent you're using, if you are using carboma in water becomes very acidic, okay? It can even go down to the pH range of 2. And hence, to be able to meet this particular pH range, you need to neutralize it with a weak base, so that you can meet up with this particular requirement in the standard. Also, when it comes to antimicrobial efficacy, as I said earlier, you need to ensure that your products, you source your raw materials from very credible sources, and then you need to add in the hydrogen peroxide to help in eliminating these microbial spores in there for you to meet this particular requirements. So when it comes to the chemical requirements, these are the requirements that has been set in the standard GS 1303. Next slide, please. I can't move my slide. Hello, Charles.
Yes, so it's moving.
Okay.
Yeah, Franca, we can continue, please.
Unfortunately, I'm still on the chemical requirements slide. My slide hasn't changed.
So we have packaging on the screen now.
Okay, so after you are done with your production, you will need to package it in such a way that you can sell it. Okay, and in packaging, you need to ensure that you choose your packaging materials very well. You need to ensure that you choose your packaging materials very well. In considering your packaging material, you should also consider the effects of the material on the product, the packaging material on the product, and whether it would be able to withstand good handling when it comes to whether you'll be able to handle good handling when it comes to the packaging. Charles, I'm having issues with the screen.
You're having issues with the screen?
Yes.
Just a moment.
Okay, but I'll still go ahead as you
Yes,
work on
please.
that.
Yes.
So it's very, very, very necessary to ensure that the integrity of the product, the packaging material should ensure the integrity of the product during the handling, storage, and transportation. Some of us produce here in Accra, we have to send our product to the northern sector of the country for sale. Okay, so it's quite a very long journey. You should ensure that whatever packaging material you have chosen to use should be able to stand all the handling and then the transportation, and should get to your final destination in good condition. You should also ensure that the packaging materials does not have any effects or little effects on the environment. You should look at the degradability of the material that you are using, so that at the end use of the material, okay, it doesn't really destroy the environment so much. You should also be looking at whether the packaging material can be reused. Okay, so some of us who are producing packaging in gallons, can we have a buyback policy where we clean up the gallons and then reuse it? Okay, so these are things to consider when you are packaging your product. You should also ensure that the hand sanitizer, that the whole essence of the hand sanitizer is to be able to dispense the product easily. And hence, you should ensure that your packaging is done in such a way that you are able to dispense it easily. Some of us, yes, we package in gallons and stuff like that, but these are all put into equipment that can easily be dispensed. So we should be looking at that. But the small ones we sell on the market, it should be packaged in such a way that it's very easy to use, and then you put back into our various, whether our pockets or our bags. And then we should ensure that sanitizers of the same batch are packed together for traceability sake. As I said, documentation is very, very important. So at the end of your production, during packaging, if you produce a batch with the same batch number, you should ensure that you package all of that into one and not mix up the batches, so that in case there are any issues, you can easily go back and trace it. The next thing to talk about is labeling. As you can see from the picture here, you realize that there is a product here that has been done. It's done, it's packaged, but there's no labeling on it. This is a no-no. Okay, it's not something. It's something that goes against a law, and that particular law is LI 1541. And I will quote what the law says. The law says that no person shall offer for sale, sell or distribute, import, or otherwise dispose of prepackaged food or drug unless the food or drug is marked or labeled. Okay, so if you can't sell on the market a product you package with no labeling information, you are going against the law LI 1541. And then based on the law, these are the labeling rules we put up in the document. First of all, you need to put it on your manufacturing name and physical address. If you have a trademark, you ensure that the trademark is there. You should state what the product is. As I said earlier, we have different types of sanitizers on our market. You either have the alcohol base or the non-alcohol base. So you need to ensure that you tell your consumers what type of sanitizer you're producing. So you put an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. The type of alcohol that is being used, if it's an ethanol, you state it. If it's a mixture of alcohols, please clearly state it on your product. And then you state the percentage of alcohol. If it's 80%, the standard says minimum of 70%. But you as a producer, might want to go beyond it. You would want to increase the concentration of your alcohol content. Please, you are allowed to do that, but clearly states it on the label for our users to know the concentration of alcohol that is being used. Then the net content, we package sanitizers in various volumes. We have the small size and then the big sizes. You need to ensure that consumers know the volumes they are buying. You need to indicate that on it. And then the batch number, very, very necessary. The expiry date as well as the best before date. And then the important. We shouldn't assume that once you say a hand sanitizer, people know what it's supposed to be used for. There has been cases where people have drunk hand sanitizer because maybe they were not given enough instruction. So instructions for use is very, very necessary. Please kindly indicate the instructions for use on your document to help users know how to use the hand sanitizer. Storage instructions is also very, very necessary. Hand sanitizers are highly flammable, and hence you wouldn't want it, and it evaporates very easy. So you should tell your people how they store the sanitizer so that they do not store it in their kitchen or store it very close to flames, so that in that case they do not have any issue. You should indicate on the product safety precautionary measures that has to be taken, like avoid contact with the eyes. If it's a flammable material, should clearly indicate that, and then keep out of reach of children, which is very, very necessary because children cannot differentiate may not be able to differentiate between alcohol and then water. Okay, and these hand sanitizers, we put in some other chemicals in there. So it's very, very necessary, especially with the liquid types. Okay, we need to ensure that they are kept out of reach of children. And then avoiding of the hand, someone would say that someone coughed in my face, so I'm going to wash my face with sanitizer. Please, let us clearly indicate on the packaging material that you need to avoid contact with the eyes. Okay, so no one would want to wash the face with alcohol just because someone has coughed in my face and I'm afraid of COVID-19, etc. And hence I have to wash my face with alcohol. And then you put on the country of origin, which is very, very necessary. At the end of the day, hello, Charles.
Yes, we keep losing you a bit, but at the end of the day, you can continue. That's all that we had. Yes.
Okay. So when it comes to conformity with the product, at the end of the day, once you have done all these things and you have undergone your checks, and then you have done your assessments, okay, and it conforms to the requirements that has been given in the standard, we declare that your product is conforming to the specification. Okay. I will touch a little bit on the certification process. There's a law which established, the law that established Ghana Standards Authority mandates us to do conformity assessment activities. And one of the conformity assessment activities is product certification. Now, for product certification, after your product has been taken through all the procedures, conforming to ISO IEC 17065, which is a procedure for certifying products. We give you the mark, the standard mark, what we term the mark of conformity, as evidence that you are complying with the certification, with the specification of the particular standard. So in this case, with the specification of GS 1303. Now, when it comes to product certification, our mark, we realize are being used on the market a lot without our permission. So just a caution, if you are using our mark without our permission, I'll gladly entreat you to walk to our offices to regularize it, or else there's a law, LI 662. There's an amendment to that particular law, 2019, which states that anyone who is using our mark without our permission is liable to a fine. You wouldn't want to find yourself in that regard, and hence I would entreat that you come to our offices and regularize the use of our mark. Ensure that we are complying with all the requirements that has been set. There are several benefits that comes with the product certification. We've all heard about the African Free Continental Trade, which has already started. You would, with our mark, you will be able to sell out there because we are working with other countries in that regard, in harmonizing most of our standards. And then with our certification mark, ensuring that you are complying with these standards, you would be having easy access to global markets. So I would entreat everyone to try as much as possible to come to us to have their product certified. This is just a checklist to help you if you want to come for our product certification. You can download our forms on our website. I will give you that link to that website later on in our presentation. You complete the forms and sign your certification agreement form. You will need your business registration license, okay? You need to register your business, and then you bring a copy, you attach a copy to your application form. Then depending on your manufacturing size, the size of your facility, your production output, and the number of employers within your institution, you register with the NBSSI. Once you go there, they'll give you all the information you need. And once you register with them, you would be given an introductory letter, which you can bring to Ghana Standards Authority. And there is a discount that you can get by bringing that introductory letter. You reduce the cost of registration for you. And this NBSSI, you can get NBSSI in all the district offices. So depending on your location, you can ask around for their district office. You can go to their websites, you can locate all their district offices and then register with them. You would need a quality manual, and basically what it's all about is your procedures, okay? As I said earlier, documentation is very, very necessary during your production. So all the information we spoke about earlier, your procedures, your list of raw materials, and which quantities to add, how you do your production, what speed to mix up the alcohol, how the alcohol is poured, which type of alcohol I am using, where I source my raw materials from. All these information are supposed to be documented, and that is what you put together into your quality manual. What are some of the checks you do during your processing? Okay, I check the pH initially, and then midway I check the pH. The final product, I also check the pH. All these information will have to be put into your quality manual so that you can present it. Labeling, we have already spoken about it, is very, very relevant. And one of the relevant information is that they would look out for all that the standard has required. So you ensure that in your label, you put all the information required by the standard in your label. On the hand sanitizers product, I see a lot of products writing, it kills 99.9% of germs and stuff like that. Now, once you make such acclamations, okay, you need to support it with claims. Have you done any tests to ensure that your product can kill 99.9% of germs? If not, please do not put it on your label. If you have, then you support your documentation with that information so that it can be looked at. Then we need a detailed direction to your factory because we need to come for inspection. Once we get there, some of the things we'll be looking out for is the allocation of your processes, basically. And then ensuring that you have enough ventilation, all the things we spoke about when it comes to the good manufacturing practices. That is basically what they would need to be looking out for. And hence you give a detailed direction to the factory site. At the end of the day, if you want to contact Ghana Standards Authority, kindly you can contact us through our email addresses, which has which are on the screen, or visit our website for more information on our services, as well as any other information you want. You will get the certification documentation forms there as well. Or you can get social with us. Go visit all our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. You like us, you follow us, and then you subscribe to our YouTube channels, and then we will get back to you. You can ask all your questions there, and we will get back to you on our social media platforms. Thank you very much for being with me, and I would invite questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesca, for taking us through this elaborate presentation. And thank you also, listeners, for staying with us. We know we had along the line had some challenges with the internet, but sometimes it happens. So thank you again, Francesca, so much. We have a few questions.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, we'll take these questions. Somebody wants to know if GSA will conduct visits to the production premises.
Yes, as part of the certification processes, visits to the premises. And one of the things, some of the things we looked at is what we have already spoken about, the good manufacturing practices, okay? So you ensure that you keep your facilities very neat. You ensure that you have allocated a section for each processing procedure, okay? So these are the things we spoke about under the good manufacturing processes. These are basically things they look out for. And your documentation, which is very, very important, okay?
All right. Okay. The equipment you talked about for manufacturing, that also needs to be calibrated. There's a question. Somebody's asking if he or she buys equipment from outside GSA, can he or she bring it to GSA for calibration, and how much would it cost? And can the fellow also buy these equipment that have been calibrated from GSA? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Yes, once you buy the equipment outside, GSA's mandate is to calibrate. We do not sell these equipment yet. Okay, so you purchase the equipment out there, and then you bring it to us for us to calibrate to ensure that it's very, very accurate for usage within your manufacturing sector. So we do not sell the equipment yet, no, but
okay,
we do the calibration of the equipment for you.
All right. Franca, there's another question. Somebody wants to know that what are some of the technical challenges associated with people are likely to encounter if they want to work with a specification of this standard? From experience, what would you tell us?
Basically, it all depends on them. First of all, is the raw material, sourcing of the raw material. Now, if you don't get your raw materials from very credible source, you would start off first of all with a poor quality raw material. For instance, basically when it comes to alcohol sanitizer, is the alcohol, so the concentration or purity of the alcohol. So first of all, you need to ensure that the alcohol is of the right concentration so that you start off with a good raw materials to get the finished material. The second aspect is with the gel type of alcohol-based sanitizers. Now, if you have the gel type of alcohol-based sanitizer being produced, one of the challenges you get is with the pH. Okay, so as I indicated earlier, to be able to meet the requirements in the pH, within the pH range that has been set, you need to neutralize your production such that you increase the pH to the pH that has been set. Okay, and then the third one is in the mixing of the gel. There are a lot of people who encounter issues when it comes to the mixing of the gel because it can lump up.
Okay.
These are challenges you have when you go into production of sanitizer, depending on the type of sanitizer you are producing.
All right. Well, somebody also wants to know, I mean, it's GSA, FDA. Do I have to register my product with both GSA and FDA? What do we have to do?
Okay, so GSA and FDA are both set up by different laws. FDA does registration of the product, and then GSA, we are mandated by law to certify all made in Ghana products before it goes onto the market. Okay, so these are two different processes that you have to go through. Okay, so yes, you need to go through both GSA and FDA. There are different processes you go through. One is registration and one is product certification. It's not the same thing. Thank you.
Okay, so the answer is straightforward. For product registration, go to GSA. For product certification, come to GSA. All right, the next question is that the issue of thickness. You talked about aloe vera as a thickener. Somebody wants to know whether there are other thickeners that they can use in the production of hand sanitizers.
Okay, so I spoke about that earlier. There are other techniques that can be used aside the aloe vera gel. I spoke about the carboma and I spoke about the CMC. So depending on your formulation, you choose whichever one suits you best. There are people who are using the aloe vera gel alone. There are people who are just using the carboma gel alone. And there are people who are also using the CMC. So you choose whichever one works best for you.
All right. A processor wants to know where he or she can get the alcohol meter to buy, and also the batch code machines. Where can he or she get this to buy?
It should be on the market. I wouldn't know exactly where you would get it, but you can get it in Accra. Once you get to Accra, ask them for a hydrometer or a pH meter or a pH paper. You can either choose a pH meter or a pH paper, whichever works best for you. Okay, so you can go to Accra Central. There are places where they sell these things and you can get it.
Okay. Franca, there's a question from Linda. I think she met you somewhere. So Linda sends her greetings. And Linda is asking, how does GSA follow up on products on the market to ensure that products meet standard approval, or products out on the market have really been registered duly and also have gone through product certification from GSA? That assurance.
Okay, thank you very much, Linda, and good to see you too. When it comes to ensuring that products on our market are meeting the required standard, we have a market surveillance department that goes out to the market to pick up samples for testing. Okay, so once we give you the certification, we just don't leave you. We have follow-up factory audits. And then we also have the market surveillance department that goes on the market to sample these products for analysis to ensure that they are meeting up with the required limits that has been set in the standard.
Okay. Somebody saying you didn't talk about, I think, yes, you said that you didn't talk about non-alcohol based sanitizers. Maybe we may have to talk about that later, since obviously our scope today was on alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Then is it safe to use a sanitizer before eating if flowing water is not readily available?
Yes, in the development of the standard, that was considered, and hence it is safe to use. In the absence of flowing water, yes, you can use it. And that is one of the reasons why we have to ensure that we do not have methanol in there.
Okay. Then somebody saying, how safe is tea as a neutralizer?
Oh, it's very safe. You do not use so much. It's just a drop to ensure that your sanitizer gets to the appropriate pH level. Okay, so it's very safe to use tea. You don't use so much. It's just to neutralize your production to get to the level that you want.
Thank you. Somebody wants to know how he or she can get a certification mark. And then a double barrel question. I add a second one. GSA, FDA, where do you go first? Hello, Franca. I think she's frozen a bit, but she should be back in the jiffy. Hello, Franca. Hello, Francisca. I think at this stage, we're unable to connect again to Francisca. We've done justice to the topic as far as we could. What we will do is that we'll take the other remaining questions, we would answer, and we'll post it on the website for members to also follow up. The recording would also be put up. If she shows up in the next minute, then we can take the remaining. Yes, Francisca, we lost you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back.
Yes, so the question is that how do I get a certification mark? And then GSA or FDA, where do I go first?
Okay, so as I indicated earlier, both processes are different. So you can start off with any area, any side you want. You can go to FDA, you can start with GSA. It all depends on you. The bottom line is you need to get certified, your product certified, and get your product registered as well.
Okay. Somebody wants to have a fair idea of the calibration fees. Can you see it on the website, or you have an idea?
The calibration fees depends on the products you want to calibrate. Okay, so I would entreat you to contact us via our social media handles or via our emails that has been indicated there, and you'll be attended to.
All right, thank you. The batch number, okay. So is the use of amber bottles as packaging for alcohol-based sanitizer beneficial?
Amber bottles. I don't really know what amber bottles are, so it's very difficult to really answer that. But as I indicated, you should ensure that the packaging material does not have any effect on the products that is being used, and then ensure that it can ensure the integrity of the product during the handling and transportation. These are very important things to look out for when you are purchasing your packaging materials.
How long do I have to renew my GSA certification?
Okay, so for the GSA certification, it's on a yearly basis. So every year you need to renew the certification. You need to go through the certification process to be given the permission to use our mark of conformity. Okay.
You talked about statement of conformity, and somebody wants to know that in reporting statement of conformity to specification or standards, do you employ decision making or you take into account the level of risk?
Sorry, can you come again?
So on the issue of conformity, and somebody wants to find out, in reporting the statement of conformity to specification, do you use or standards, do you employ the decision rule, or you take into account the level of risk?
Okay, so in setting up our specifications in the standard, we look at the level of risk, okay? So all the limits that we have set in our standards are based on the level of risk. And hence, at the end of the day, once you're able to meet all these minimum requirements that have been set up, so yes, it's based on the level of risk in our decision making.
Okay, on labeling, somebody wants to know, is the batch number, expiring date, manufacturing date, is it supposed to be on the label pre-printed or on the packaging? Did you get me?
So yes, you're asking whether the batch number is supposed to be on the label, which is pre-printed, yes, or on the packaging. Yes. So it depends on you. Will you be able to pre-print your labels for every batch that you do? If not, it's advisable that you have it printed on the packaging itself. It's quite expensive if you have to print label for each batch. So it all depends on you. If you are able to print a label for each batch with a different batch number, that is fine. But if you are not, you wouldn't be able to do that. It's advisable you get it printed on the packaging per each batch that you produce.
My last question, is the addition of acetone a requirement in the production of rubbing alcohol?
Currently, we haven't looked at the production of, we don't have a standard for rubbing alcohol yet. However, this standard is being used as a guide in the registration of rubbing alcohol. Now, rubbing alcohol, basically, it's about water and then water and alcohol. Okay, so for the rubbing alcohol, I can't speak much on that because we do not have a standard on that yet.
All right. I think we've exhausted our questions from the Q&A button. We want to thank you once again for spending time with us. We thank you, our resource panelists. We thank you for doing justice to this topic for us. We also have in the background Auntie Joyce Okore, who is the Acting Director of Standards. Auntie Joyce, you still with us? Okay, so.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we take, good afternoon. We take some closing remarks from you whilst we end the session.
Okay, so apologies for not being able to join right at the beginning of the meeting.
Welcome. Can we see your face, please?
Yes, please. Am I on?
Yes, you are on, please, you are on.
Okay, good afternoon again, and it's been such a nice experience. The presentation was super. Well done, Francisca, and I'm hoping that all our questions that were put across were answered, to the best of her ability. I think she did well with those questions, and we're also open for more questions, and I think you all can come over to GSA to visit the library and have access to the standards, to make reference, to buy your own copies, to help with your work. And also you can pass by the certification department to look at our processes on getting your product certified, I would say that we're grateful to WACOMP for giving us this opportunity. And we have a lot more work we're going to embark on, but this had been critical because of our present situation, the pandemic. It was timely. We got the standards together, and of course, WACOMP was very much key in making sure that we sensitize SMEs. So it's been a good training, and we're also open for retraining or further consultation. You can always come over, or Francisca can put her email across. In fact, those 2 emails are out there so that if you have any issues, you send us a mail, we'll respond, we'll give you the appropriate, if it has to go to another directorate, we'll just get you officers to assist you. And the good thing is Francisca is also into manufacturing. So she has hands-on information, and if you have any challenges with sourcing materials, and she can give you guidance. At the end of the day, we want the industry to grow, and then you realize that these products have become so necessary in these times, and we're using volumes of them. So the more we have in production, the better for all of us. And of course, the prices should come down. Prices just hiked at the peak or the onset of the pandemic. You realize that hand sanitizers were very expensive because we didn't have much on the market, and people were basically scrambling for these products. So with more SMEs coming up, and with WACOMP support through UNIDO, I'm hoping that more people will get on board, come up with quality products, safe products, and then we can have them on the shelves, and hopefully prices should go down, and this product should be accessible to the populace. So on this note, I would like to end here, and thank you all participants. I hope you picked quite a bit from Francisca's presentation, which I think was very detailed, very, very detailed. So we're grateful that you joined us, and we're open for further discussion. Thank you very much. Welcome, Ghana.
Thank you very much, Auntie Joyce, for joining us, and for also your closing remarks. And thank you, Francisca, for such a detailed presentation. We are grateful. And I believe all the SMEs, even though we don't see them, at least you saw some friends, they've seen you, and I guess we'll be coming back. WACOMP, based on the feedback we get, would also come back. We may have to organize another one, another time, for other SMEs who could not participate to also come in. And for all SMEs who joined, we also apologize for the hitches in this technology. Sometimes the network fails us a bit, but by and large, the information went on very well. We also want to thank our sister project, the Global Quality Standards Program, GSA, who supported Ghana Standards in development of the standard. Our sister, Safwa, we thank her and her team members so much. So on behalf of the WACOMP team, we want to thank everybody who joined us. We also remind you that on Friday, we have a webinar on marketing potential for cosmetics, natural cosmetic products. So please join us, all those in cosmetics, know how you can take advantage and sell your products across the world market. It's also about something on the program on e-commerce, e-marketing to e-commerce, which is also coming up. So please follow us on our social media handles, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and then get to know what is happening. Visit our website, wacompghana.org, and you get all the information. On my own behalf, the Chief Technical Advisor, on behalf of my other team members, Na, Linda, Joseph, Ebe, Magde, we want to thank our partners, GSA, for this wonderful partnership. We're so grateful, and we'll be coming back to you for further collaboration. On this note, on behalf of all, we say thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.